Hey guys, in this quick tip tutorial, I'm going to be going over the new Cinema 4D Maxon Noise node that Redshift got recently. So, if you guys are aware, Cinema 4D has a big set of procedural noises it ships with. A lot of people really like them, and recently Redshift integrated this noise system directly into the node list that Redshift ships with. So now you can use the Maxon noises inside of any of the Redshift DCCs. So you can use it in Maya, Houdini, 3ds Max, etc., etc. Not just Cinema 4D. And if you're a Cinema 4D user, in the past, the way it worked is it would bake down the noise and apply it like a texture, but now it's fully procedural and just loads directly into Redshift. So you have a lot more control and it loads up faster. And being a procedural, there's no textures or UVs required. So I'm going to just go ahead and show you guys an example and a little bit of what this noise node can do. It's really neat. It's very powerful. Lots of cool options with it. I believe it launched in Redshift 3.9, 3.09 or 3.010. So you do need to be on the 3.0 builds to use this. Now, we've just got this simple setup here in Houdini. We've just got a camera, a dome light with an HDR, and a sphere. And so I'm going to go ahead and apply a material on this. I'm going to just use one of my presets that I have here in my Houdini collection. Let's try something like a metal paint. Let's just go with blue metallic paint. And on the object itself, we need to activate the displacement and tessellation. So when you first make an object, let's just say this is a brand new object here, there will be a Redshift tab built for you automatically. If you for some reason don't see this tab, you can have your object selected and come up to the Obj Parameters and click the shelf tool, and it'll automatically build it for you. Sometimes if you're using an old scene, because the settings here can change as new builds get added, you might want to update them. Same thing for the camera. There's an option for the camera parameters. And every once in a while, when a lot of stuff changes in the options, I recommend you kind of select all your objects if it's an old scene and reapply or refresh the parameters, and it'll update everything to use the new version of it. So anyways, we have them here selected on our object. This sphere isn't anything particularly special. It's just a sphere, some normals, and an out. And we need to activate tessellation displacement so that it'll actually work on our object. So with our sphere selected, we're going to just come into the Redshift OBJ tab and then move under the tessellation and displacement tab, and we're going to enable tessellation and we're going to enable displacement. And I think I'm going to actually use world space displacement and tessellation. So I'm going to disable adaptive mode, and I'm going to use an edge length of 0.1, and we'll see how this does. Now let's go to our material, and we're going to jump in here. And so here is our material that I just dragged in here, and let's actually load up the IPR. So let's see what we get. So this is where we're at right now currently, and nothing particularly special. Let's rotate around so you can get a little bit of a better view. It's not blown out by the sunlight. So this is cool. Now, something new that was added also, I believe Maya and Houdini, I'm not sure if Cinema 4D has this yet, but there is this new option in the Redshift Renderview. So you'll notice there's a couple buttons up here on the shelf. The select object and select material buttons. These are new. And so Maya has these for sure. and mine actually has the isolate shader node option. Houdini will get this soon also. And so if you guys have ever used the isolate mode in Arnold, that's what that does, where it isolates an individual node. Really useful for look dev. That's available in Maya now, so Houdini will be getting that soon. And what these options do here, so if I click select object, you'll notice that we get this white border outline here. And this means we're in select object mode. So if we click on an object inside of our render view, it will automatically select it. And you'll notice how on this side it automatically moved, picked our object, and it's showing us the object's parameters, right? So pretty neat, especially in Houdini where everything's kind of nodes all over the place. This will make it easy. Just click on an object and it'll automatically pull you to it. Now there's also the select material mode. So if we click select material and we click on our object here, it's going to jump and select our blue metallic Redshift material builder. So really useful for quickly editing materials and stuff while we're doing look dev. And so just to disable this mode, you can just click on the select material button and it'll be back to regular selection mode. Some of these options have been updated since the last time I mentioned them. Like we have our isolate selected here. So if I have, let's just come up here and make another object. Let's just drop in here and make this a box. We'll jump back up. Let's move to the side. Our render. And you can see there's our box. Let's move it left. And you'll notice that here's our box. And if we select isolate the selected, it will isolate only our selected objects. So you'll notice that right now I have the box selected in our network view. If I select the sphere, it'll only select the sphere. If I select both, it'll do both. This also works for lights, and if nothing's selected, it'll just select everything. This also applies for lights, which is pretty useful. So if we come down here and drop down a light, and let's just make this light a sphere. And shrink it down a little. You'll notice that right now it's only applying our sphere light here, and our dome light's missing. And then if I pick the dome light, it's only going to do the dome light. If I pick both, it does the sphere light and the dome light. So this is useful, this mode, for look deving, obviously isolating objects and whatnot. So pretty useful. And let's disable, oops, the, where is it? There we go, isolate selected. So let's disable that. And let's delete that box and that light. They also recently added a click to focus mode, which is really useful, and the bokeh options. So if we activate this, you'll notice that it automatically got really blurry because of the bokeh mode. And we could actually just click inside of our scene. So click to focus. You could click on the object where you want it to focus. And then if you click and drag with Alt, the Alt key held down, this will increase or decrease the depth of field. So really cool. And what this is adjusting is the circle of confusion, so the size of the bokeh. So if we make this big, the bokeh shapes are really big. If we make this smaller, you guys can see how that works. So pretty neat. And then when you're done playing around with it, you could just click on the click to focus mode again, and it'll disable it. So whenever you activate these modes, you'll see this white box around your render view, and it'll mention what mode you're in. So I'm going to make this a little smaller. And let's unclick that. Cool. So that makes it really easy to set up your depth of field, how strong you want it, and where you want it, just by clicking around your scene. So anyways, let's move on to our shader here. And let's drop down a displacement node. So rs displacement. We're going to plug this into our displacement slot. Let's drop down a pin. And we're going to start typing in Maxon, and you're going to see the new Redshift Maxon Noise. And we're going to plug this in over here. And actually, before we do that, let's just look at what this noise looks like by itself. So if we plug it in directly inside of our surface slot, you will get just the noise without any shading, no specular, none of that. So you can actually isolate the noise and how it looks on its own. And so this ships with several options in here. If we come down, let's move this down. It's got everything from the octaves, the seed, and some of these parameters will be exposed or hidden depending on which noise type you're using. And so the type of noise, you can see there's a pretty big list, and each one of these is a little different. So it's really, really neat noise options here, a lot of options. And the seed lets you obviously adjust the seed. The color, this is the input values, black or white. The octaves, obviously, will let you adjust the octaves. Can't really notice it too much on this. We'd have to get a little closer. So let's actually do that. Let's zoom in a bit. And let's say, or actually, let's since we zoomed in, we need to reselect our depth of field. Okay, and you could adjust the animation speed, the time. So right now it's using global. You could use a custom time. So if we speed up, let's just say here, and reload. Well, it's kind of hard to see since it's not reading it actively. But you could adjust this. So there we go. Now that we've got some speed, because the speed was disabled, so it wasn't changing. So if we have speed, this will adjust how the noise changes over time. So if we were to crank this up even more, you'll see how it's changing as I slide through the time slider. So pretty cool. Let's disable it for now. And like I said, you could change the time source to be a custom source. The input type, you could use UVs or vertex, object, or world space. For our purposes, object's going to be best. You can adjust the scale. So if we shrink this down, you'll see how it's making the noise a lot smaller. You can make it bigger. Pretty straightforward. Oops. Let's try to center our camera a little bit. And let's go back to our material here. We've got scale. You could scale in a certain direction rather than scale in all directions. So if we crank this up in the Y, we're stretching on the Y-axis. You could offset the noise if you want to get a specific look. Let's say you like it a little more for the pattern up here and you want to slide it down. There's the clipping, the brightness, the cycles, the low clip. So if we increase this, you'll notice that the black gets blacker, and that's because we're crushing the black values. And then the high clip, we're crushing the white values. So the low clip would be this color up here, black, and then this color right here. The brightness, this just increases the brightness of everything or darkens everything, which can be useful. The contrast just increases the contrast of the shapes that we have in there. So again, pretty useful if you want to make little tweaks and adjustments. Instead of piping in a ramp This can maybe get you there, or if you need more control, you'd plug in a ramp and crush the ramp values. So yeah, let's check out some of these noise patterns here we've got. So we've got box, and actually let's increase the contrast a bit so you can see it a little more. So this gives us these box kind of shapes. Let's see if we can adjust the scale. There we go. And then we have blistered turbulence, which gives us these kind of a shape. We have booyah, which gives us these little tiny kind of a dots. We have cell noise, which gives us these very rigid shapes here. Cranal, which gives us these kind of almost veiny kind of shapes. So if we increase the contrast, you can see them right there. It's pretty neat. Switch over to dense. Pretty cool. Displaced turbulence. FBM. Hama. Luca. Mod noise. Naki. So as you guys can see, these are really cool patterns and shapes. And of course, like I said, some of these options will be exposed or be hidden depending on the type of noise. This is just standard regular noise. Nutuous. Obj. Piezo. Boxo. Sema. This is cool. Stupple. Regular turbulence. VL noise. Wavy turbulence. Cell Voronoi, which is a classic. A lot of people use this for car paint shaders or paint with flakes, stuff that needs flakes basically. Wavy turbulence. Oh, actually, I was already there. Displaced Voronoi. Sparse convolution. Voronoi 1. Voronoi 2. Voronoi 3. Zeta. As you guys can see, if we scroll around, there's just tons of variety, tons of options here. Fire. Electric. And that seems to not be doing anything with the seed. Let's see if I crank up the speed and move around. Yeah, we'll see how it moves. Pretty neat. Gaseous. Really, really cool. And rigid multifractal. So yeah, as you guys can imagine, combining this with some color ramps or layering these noises, you guys could get some very powerful procedural shading without even resorting to textures. You know, if you mix it with ambient occlusion or curvature, etc., etc. So yeah, let's actually check out some of these now with our displacement shader. So let's move this up a bit. And let's plug this into our displacement here. Texture map. And our height's a little strong, as you guys can see. So let's bring this down a bit. And let's plug in our base paint shader now inside. So yeah, wow, really, really weird and unique here. Let's try 0.1. And I think we might need a little more resolution on our tessellation to catch some more of those details. But let's see, let's increase our scale to 1. Go to our object. And let's make this 0.5, so half. Let's go 0.2. There we go. So you guys can see that it's starting to capture more of that detail, 0.1. But as I increase the resolution, it's taking a little longer to update the tessellation because it's tessellating more polygons. And let's try out some different material or noise nodes, different patterns, and see what we get here. Let's try Booyah. So now we've got smaller little sharp noise. Try box noise. It's pretty neat. And actually on the bokeh, let's reduce the circle of confusion a little bit more so you get the edges a little sharper. Cool. Now, something to keep in mind if you don't want texture swimming in Houdini. In other DCCs, you don't have to worry about this as much, but you do need a reference object. Otherwise, if you move the object around, you can get texture swimming. Sometimes this one right now is referencing the object, thankfully. So you'll notice that it's not changing. But if you were to use, for example, the older noise node, you might need to do this. So it's just a good practice to, let's jump in here. Always include a rest position to keep textures from swimming through as you move the object in world space. For this particular node, it's not necessary, but like I mentioned, it's just good practice to keep the rest node. But anyways, let's move on back over here to our material. And let's just play around with the noise types here. But yeah, as you guys can imagine, you know, there's just so many different options, and you guys will be able to play around with it on your own time and explore some of these really cool new noise types that we have here. I mean, just look at this. This is really neat. So yeah, I'm sure, you know, you guys will have a blast playing with them. One more thing I do want to mention. Recently, I think 2 or 3, maybe 3 versions ago, Redshift also added NVLINK support, and the way it works, it's split up, so it's not like regular NVLINK. It's a little different from the NVLINK that other engines are using, in that the way it works is it splits up the memory between geometry or volumes. So if you go into your Redshift ROP or your render settings, under the memory tab, there will be this new option here called NVLINK for geometry, NVLINK for volumes. And so normally this is on automatic, guys. You don't need to touch anything, but if you guys need to do testing, you can force enable or force disable, either one. And so if you guys are using 280 Ti's or the 270 Super or the 280 or 280 Super or the Titans or Quadros, the RTX series, and you have the NVLINK bridge, if you have it turned on inside of your options, pretty much if you go to your NVIDIA control panel on the desktop, and if you load it correctly, so let's move this out of the way for a second. You should have what's called SLI active. So here you go. You see that we have SLI mode. And so what that does when you have the NVLINK bridge is Redshift will detect that you have the NVLINK bridge and merge the VRAM between two GPUs. So for example, the 280 Ti, you'll get something like 19 or 18 gigabytes of VRAM instead of ideally the perfect would be 11, but you know, Windows and stuff like that eats up some gigs. So instead of what you would normally have, it kind of doubles your VRAM, but it's not automatic. In terms of if your scene needs it, it'll use it. You don't have to activate it. Redshift will just detect if you're going out of core on geometry, or if you're going out of core on volumes, or both, and it will automatically enable NVLINK. And the reason that it's not forced automatically on is because NVLINK can slow down your renders a little bit. So the way that Redshift does it is if it detects that your scene needs it and is going out of core, then it will enable it. Otherwise, it won't use it. So that makes it, you know, pretty useful. And yeah, it works great. You know, it saves you a lot of render time if you're going out of core on big scenes because it's doubling your VRAM. And you could actually use it in mixed GPU setups. So, for example, I have a 1080 Ti also in this machine. The two 280 Ti's that are NVLinked will not go out of core, while the 1080 Ti bucket will. And that one will just be a little slower, while the two 280 Ti's will keep rendering in core faster. So just something to keep in mind that it does work in mixed setups. But yeah, I'll probably make a video dedicated on showing the VRAM usage on that in detail. I made a post about it in the forums, so if you guys actually want to read about the new NVLink features in detail, if you go inside of the Redshift, let's move that out of the way again, dev forum section, there's two posts about it here, the geometry testing and volume testing. And so I just came in here and I made a detailed post about how to test this, you know, the render time differences, how it works. Same thing for the geometry. So I mentioned how many more polygons you could render, the difference it makes in render time, etc., etc. So having NVLink on, off, going out of core normally, and using NVLink or not using NVLink. So if you guys want detailed information about this, I recommend checking the dev announcement section and checking out my posts here for the geometry, NVLink geometry testing results and NVLink volume testing and results. So yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick little kind of tutorial. It's nothing really complicated. I just kind of wanted to show you guys some of these new options, including the new Renderview options, the new Maxon Noise, which is really awesome, and a quick brief mention that NVLink is now supported and the way it kind of works. So yeah, thanks again guys for all the support here on YouTube and Patreon. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.